Okay, everybody, we are with Fred Birnbaum from the Idaho Freedom Foundation going over this new budget process that's being proposed. The numbers are scrolling down below once again today. Call up Representative Horman, Senator Scott Grow. Encourage them. This is their idea, and with a lot of input from folks like Fred and everybody else that's really looking for transparency, and we need to make sure that they understand that we're supporting this, because so far this is sounding pretty excellent. Fred, you were just about to dive into the other side of the equation here, the agencies, what the governor asks for. So what can we show? What can we pull up here to show and walk us through that?
So if you can pull up one of the documents I sent you, which shows the so this is the summary. So we need to get one of the sub agencies. It can be any one. It could be Health and Human Services.
Okay, well, we'll get it up there. Is it?
This one's fine. There's some.
Here we go.
This is a good example. So if you go back to the first page, the one prior to this, yep. So what you saw before was the roll-up of everything, right? All agencies. This one is a roll-up of what they're calling general government. And what you see is last year they got $653 million, but to maintain the general government is only about $378.9 million. So that's a lot less. So that's encouraging. So if you would scroll down
to the next column here. Yeah, great.
Right. And so what you're seeing here, has never been shown this way, and maybe just go up just a pinch.
So let's show the bottom.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect. So what you see on the right columns is what it costs to maintain general government, $378.9 million. And then what you see is a sort of a consolidated statement of line items. So it just says line items, 197 million. And then there's a technology consolidation, 5.8. And then these revenue adjustments. But you think, well, that's a big difference. But Fred, this doesn't help me. What does all this mean? So let's scroll further in the document. Okay, so what we see is that each sub-agency is asking for stuff. Now, in this case, they don't give you a lot of detail, but they do show you that the Department of Administration wants $94 million for line items. In some of these sub-agencies, they actually break out what it is. In this case, they're not. But as a legislator, if you approve the maintenance budget separately, you could vote for that, the $31 million, and then you could say, gee, this is a lot of extra money. I'm going to be very skeptical that the agencies should get what the governor wants, which is $211 million, right?
So real quick, Ben, do you see that down there in the middle column? The governor's request is that this entire middle column there. Down at the bottom, it says 211, that last purple line.
Yes.
So you're saying that 211, is there a way to highlight that, Ben? Yeah, right there. That 211 is the additional request that the governor says we should give this department.
Right. And it's 211 over versus the 31. So the addition is the math difference. It'd be 211 minus the 31. So you call that whatever, 180-ish difference.
Right.
So let's go to another one. Let's keep scrolling. This is
the Commission on Aging. Okay.
Right. So maintain the Commission on Aging, which some people might think is in a proper role of government. On the bottom right, it's 15.8 million, but then they want ARPA money, support state aging programs. You see that in the governor's rec, where you have an extra money, nutrition funding, and they want a financial specialist. And you might say, well, is it just 3 million more? But this is, when you do this in every agency every year, for 30 years, that's how you get big government. They just, they grow with these pieces. They just keep taking more and more bites, because you have to ask yourself, well, they have 14 staff. Why do they need another person? And it's just every year, every agency.
Right. So this particular department, which you said maybe we shouldn't even need it anyway, but the Commission on Aging, the governor and the agency, they both request that they hire a a financial, what is that? A financial
Specialist.
specialist? Yeah.
Right.
To hire a specialist at $83,000 a year. So this is someone's job that they're
Right.
basically they're offering with our money for this specific department. This is fascinating stuff, and to be able to and you're telling us that this has never been broken down before like this before. We haven't had documents like this in the past.
Well, we have, but it took a lot of skill because they weren't shown this way. They were basically just shown you would see on the right the governor's requests and the line items, but it was not juxtaposed against just what the maintenance piece would be. There was no third column that said statewide maintenance. You saw the agency's request, the governor's request, and then maybe JFAC's final appropriation. But they never showed you in this fashion where it was very easy. All you got to do is sort of do a side by side here and say, okay, well, it costs $15 million to keep the lights on and the agency going, which some people might say, well, I'm not sure I agree with that anyway. But I sure as heck, I'm not going to give it more. So that's the distinction. Let's go to another one. Let's keep scrolling. Commission on the Arts. So again, we see the agency's request, 2.18 million. Now, a lot of people would say, well, do we really, should the government be in the arts business? And we would argue probably shouldn't, but they want more of these NEA grants, 50,000. And you almost, if keep going, let's just sort of flip through more of these. Okay, so Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired, they want $1 million for case management software. And how are they managing cases now? I mean, they're obviously managing them, but they want money.
1.1 million for some new software. That reminds me of when Obamacare was rolled out for like $1 billion or 10 billion and it didn't work.
The software, right?
Or even didn't the state get some new software recently that people are to go through invoices and bills and it's just not working functionally?
Yeah, it's an enterprise resource thing. It's called Luma. It's the statewide platform. Right. So, and we could spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's important for your viewers to understand that what the maintenance budget process does is it goes agency by agency. So there's all these documents are online, and you can see every agency wants more stuff, and they always do. And there's a big difference between what it takes to keep government going, a $1.5 billion difference roughly, and what the governor wants. And the governor's been able to basically say, well, just look at the big picture and don't worry about all these details. And government is frugal because I say it is. And then when you look at all these things, you're like, well, and I didn't even get into the most egregious ones. If we went to the Medicaid department and look, they want 28 more staff, not making that up.
Wow.
The worst one I've seen is public health. They have all kinds of stuff in there from ARPA for vaccine things. They're still basically acting as if COVID is still ongoing. So this process I think it's promising because then it more transparency, more opportunity to review the line items separately from the maintenance piece. Now, the maintenance piece in future years, that should be reviewed too, right? Because there's probably stuff in there in the base that we don't agree with. But the first rule of holes is stop digging. And this is an opportunity to do that with the budget. One thing I would add, it's not, calling the co-chairs is fine, but I would also encourage your viewers to call the Senate and House leadership to support this. So that's the pro tem, Chuck Winder, Senator Anthem, the majority leader, Megan Blanksma, the House majority leader, and the speaker, and say, we like this new budget process that promotes more transparency. Certainly, it elevates the role of the legislature as a separate branch that can push back on the governor, as opposed to the governor shows up and it's up or down, give me what I want, or you're going to be called defunding. So this is an important step forward. I would also say it's not a done deal within the structure of government. Now, there's a lot of pushback, And this might not actually happen. We're going to know pretty soon in the next couple of days whether they're going to go with this process. Even though they've started on it, they might backtrack. And
Well,
so,
that's why we got to put the pressure on, because I think what you've shown us here today is clear that if we didn't see this before, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. What does it take to just keep the lights on and have the proper funding necessary to just keep our state operating, because it needs to be operating. But it's the growth of government, it's the spending of our dollars that could be used elsewhere, meaning back in our pockets to
right.
kickstart whatever we need to do, especially during these hard times. So, Fred, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to put up those additional numbers. You're absolutely right. We should be contacting leadership, and we're gonna keep an eye on this. We're gonna keep the pressure on. And other than that, how can people follow you? How can we support your efforts in this field here?
Well, we have a website, idahofreedom.org. We write about these issues. We also have our indices, the Freedom Index, the Spendy Index, and specifically the Spendy Index is going to review and rate every appropriations bill. So if you're really into the numbers, so no appropriations bills have been printed, but when they are, they will be rated and they will be on idahofreedom.org. Look for the Spendy Index, and certainly, you'll see the detail. I did do something on an overview on Idaho's fiscal health. I see you have that up there. Now you're going to the Spendy Index. So the Spendy Index is not populated yet because there's not a single appropriations bill that has been printed.
Right.
But when it is, this is where you will find the rating or review of each and every one of those.
Great. All right, Fred. Thank you again so much for joining us and walking us through this. We'll have you back.
Thanks very much. And I'm encouraged by your enthusiasm, and I'd love to come back and talk more about this.
Excellent. All right. Thank you to Fred. And folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.